What's going on, guys? It's Groove back again with another video on Bitcoin. I've been going down this Bitcoin rabbit hole. As you can see, I'm buying t-shirts now. That's how far down I'm going. I've read a lot of books on Bitcoin, but this one right here, Bitcoin or Death, I really just bought it because I like the cover of it. But this thing, it keeps it super simple. Like, there's some rabbit holes you can go down with some of these books that go deep, like philosophical wise, and understanding that it's just more than just money. But this book, it breaks it down into two parts. There's either Bitcoin or you're going to choose death. Understanding the differences between those two. So in today's video, we're just going to go over the death portion. So what is the death portion? So the death portion is the current system that we're living in. So that would be the fiat system. And understanding how the system is kind of like a house of cards. It's kind of fake. It's not backed by anything. It's just by decree of the government. We're using these dollars because they say we can use them, or whatever country you're in, you have to use that currency only because the government says you need to use it. And it is funny because all day, every day, we work for money. We have to think money. We're thinking money all day, every day. I got to go to work so I can put a roof over my head, so I can put food on my table. But majority of people have no idea what the financial system is, how it works. And it's kept like that by design, and I've watched a bunch of podcasts lately, and a lot of people who have like their masters in economics, they're like, going through all my schooling, I never really learned what money is. And you kind of only realize that once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So the first question that the book asks is, what is money? Like, nobody ever asked that question. And all money is a store of your work and your efforts that you've put in. Throughout history, money has been an array of different things, from pearls to seashells to livestock to gold coins to salt. So it's just a store of your work and your efforts that you bring to society. So money can kind of just be whatever we want it to be. But at the same time, even though money can be whatever we want it to be, not everything will have a lasting value. So money should have, there's certain qualities that money should have. There's 6 qualities in total. So the first quality money should have, it should be a medium of exchange. So we should be able to trade between each other for goods and services. The second one is should be durable, so it should last over time. You don't want something that just breaks down. Maybe it gets caught outside and it starts getting rained on, or it breaks down or it rusts or something like that over time. So you want something that's durable and that lasts over a long period of time. And then you also want it to be divisible. So you want to break it down. So like you have $1 and it's broken down into 100 pennies. So you want it to be divisible. We also need it to be portable. So it needs to be easy to transport from place to place. Again, you can carry some dollars in a wallet and you can go from place to place. Gold would be a really bad portable money. And one huge factor is you want it to be scarce. You want the supply to be fixed or very limited. And lastly, you want it needs to be fungible, which means the same money, it's the same in America as it is in South America, as it is in Japan or China. You want it to be the same all around. You don't want to have money be better somewhere than it is in another place. And so with all that being said, today, we don't use money in our day-to-day activities. We use something that is a currency. We can exchange value with each other, but it's not money. So a lot of people don't understand, but our current currency used to be backed by physical gold. So the country needed to hold a certain amount of gold attached to the certain amount of dollars that were in circulation. But after 1971, that was no longer the case. And so the government could just or the Federal Reserve, in conjunction with the government, could just print up as much money as they wanted to. They could just keep making more of it. Today, most of the time, they don't even really print it up. It's on a computer screen. It's on a ledger. They'll just say, I want another $1 trillion into the system, and then we'll press enter. They just conjure it up out of thin air. And me and you, we have to go actually trade our time and go work for this money or this currency that they can just put more of into the system. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. The dollar still says, "In God we trust," but we should really replace God with the Federal Reserve because that's the only thing that's backing this money is the Federal Reserve. Another interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is there's been thousands of fiat. Today we use the dollar in America. In Europe they use the euro, but there's been thousands of them throughout history, and they've all gone to zero. So I don't know why people don't think that the dollar will go to zero. Like, they all go to zero. Like, not one of them has, lasted the time of, its existence. They all go kaput. And this is why that money used to be backed by gold. So something physical, like we had this big store of value that has been in existence for over 5,000 years, which is gold. Ever since they took that gold, we came off the gold standard, it's just been backed by nothing. And nobody knows how much gold is out there. Nobody knows how much gold the US holds, or Russia, or China, or just random people who have it in vaults which are protected by men with guns. Nobody knows how much is out there. Nobody knows how much is held by, countries. And so even gold is kind of failing us today. We only mine gold on land. We haven't even started searching for gold underwater. And then there's talks about mining gold on asteroids and stuff like that. So, again, gold has been a really good store of value for the last 5,000 years, but that's going away. It's not, it's not a fixed supply of money. There's still more places to get gold from. So then he talks a little bit about central banks. So what is a central bank? So a central bank is a place that prints money. They put money out there for the public. And they also are pivotal in shaping monetary policy within society. So he talks about how the central banks, they're really only there for a few powerful elite people. And then everybody else kind of just gets the scraps. And he talks about how when you have power over millions of people, when power becomes centralized, even those with the best intentions, they just become corrupt over, a period of time. And you can kind of see it too. Like, a lot of people like to point out, like people like Nancy Pelosi, who's been in government her entire life, and she gets a salary of like $150,000 to $200,000 a year, but she's worth like over $100 million. It's like, where did all this come from? Like, how did you get this much money just by being a public, servant? But he says, like, this isn't like a criticism of human nature. It's just like an observation. When you give power to a small group of people, over time, even those with the best intentions will become corrupt. And this isn't just confined to money either. Like, happens across the board. So it happens at the highest levels in education. Like, if I'm part of a fraternity, I'm going to make sure my kids go to that school because I built up connections there. Or it happens in churches and religion, or even with sports. We see it now. A lot of people are complaining that LeBron James' son shouldn't have made the league, but he had the power to pull those strings behind the scenes to get his son into the NBA. So, power, it corrupts, and people will use it towards, to help them and their family and their friends out before everybody else. So it's just a natural thing that humans do. So besides the centralized banks, even regular banks steal from you. There's something called fractional reserve lending. And so every time you put money into the bank, they need to get rid of it and lend it out to make more money on it. And before, there used to be a limit on how much they can do. So if you were to put $100 in the bank, they had to at least keep $10 on reserve and they can lend out the other 90. But I'm pretty sure now it's zero. They don't need to keep any money on hand and they could just lend the entire thing out, which is kind of wild. And you see a lot of banks blowing up because of this, but it is crazy. Like, again, you can have money in your bank. Let's just say you have $20,000 in the bank and you go to your bank and say, hey, I want to take out $10,000. The person at the register will probably be like shocked. They'll be like, wait, hold up. Did you call ahead? Like, I need to go grab the branch manager. And it's just like, wait a minute, I have $20,000 in here. I want to just take out $10,000. Why is this such a big issue? It's because they don't actually have the money in the bank. Like, there's no money in the bank and there's no money in your account. It's not your money. It's kind of wild when you realize this. The money in your bank is not yours. This is why, a lot of banks will blow up, and it's something called the bank run, is when everybody goes to the bank and wants their money back at the same time. It's called a run on the banks. People used to do this in the early 1900s. There was a lot of bank runs. And so the government instated that, we became FDI insured. So it means that you're insured up to $250,000, I believe right now, of money in the bank. But this is kind of a facade. This is kind of an illusion. They just did this to make the public feel like their money in the bank was safe. And so nobody would do any more bank runs. So it's like your money isn't safe, but they said that it's FDI insured to make you feel safe. It's kind of crazy the games our government and our banks play with us. So next, when it comes to the death portion of this book, he talks about deficit spending. So what is deficit spending? So this is any money that the government feels like they need to spend. And this is why the government, in conjunction with the news and the media outlets, they need to keep us in constant fear. So it's an easy way to print up money. If they keep us in constant fear, there's a new health scare coming, there's a new crisis, there's a new war. It's an easy way for them to spend or print money, which in turn, that does get funneled back to some people's pockets. But again, it's an easy way for them to spend money, is just, to keep the public in fear. And so oh, we need to print money. We need to send money over here. We need to send aid over here. We need to do this. And a lot of people are getting paid for that behind the scenes. And you may be wondering, okay, so what's the big deal? Like, if there's a crisis, we need to help somebody, or we need to help people. Like, yeah, we need to, we need to send them money. We need to send them aid. But every time new money enters the system, your current money gets devalued. So the money that me and you, we worked hard for, it just gets devalued even more. So again, I like using the analogy of like a pizza. If that pizza was cut into 8 slices and you got 2 slices of that pizza and you're like, oh man, that pizza really filled me up. Those 2 slices were really good. And every time the government with the Federal Reserve print more money, it's like they cut more slices of that pizza up, and then you get the same 2 slices and you're like, I'm still hungry. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? We gave you 2 slices. And you're like, yeah, but it doesn't fill me up as much as it did before. Well, and then we'll sit there and say, but we gave you 2 slices. And so it's like, people don't understand why they're eating 2 slices, but they're still hungry. People don't understand why they're working hard, but they're still not being able to buy more things or buy the same things that they were buying before. It's because there's more dollars entering the system. That's pretty much that sums up everything. All the problems in the entire world, or in our worlds, is just there's more dollars in the system. It's the reason why houses go up in prices. It's the reason why food costs more. It's not individual people or corporations that are greedy. There's just more supply of dollars in the system. But, our paychecks don't change. We still have to work with the same amount of money that we had to just buy, the same stuff that are now inflated in price because there's just more dollars in the system. And then with that, to add more fuel to the fire, with more dollars being in the system, this causes inflation. And then so the government needs to combat this with raising the interest rates. And so this is like this battle of inflation and interest rates, but it's really just money printing in the system. But then the government will come on TV and be like, oh, I don't know why everything's more expensive. We think it's greedy corporations, or we think it's this, or we think it's that, when they know damn well what's causing the problem, but they just keep deflecting it to other things. And because the average person doesn't understand this, they start blaming the things that the government said. But it's really the money printing. That's all the problem is. The government creates a crisis to print more money, and then your dollars get devalued, and then they'll just blame it on something else. We know something's wrong. We know everything's getting more expensive. We just don't know what it is. We just keep getting desensitized until you're just going to die eventually because of bad money. You're just going to, and we see that today as well. Like, so many people are moving back home with their parents, or they want to give up on life, or they're becoming homeless, or they talk about doom spending. Oh, I can't save any money, so I'm just going to spend it now. And all of this is because of bad money and all of the printing that's going on. It's crazy when you think about it, or at least when you understand it. Next, he talks about endless wars and, how fiat continues endless wars. This current system that we live in, the people that control it, they want to keep it like this on purpose because they need war. They need war. That's how they make money. They make more when they fund the weapons to go to war, and then they make money when they rebuild the country that they just destroyed. The people in charge of this system, they don't want the wars to end. So if you're like, oh man, we need to end wars, why can't we just stop fighting each other? It's because there's too much money behind it, and there's too much money to be made by a certain group of people to keep these things going. So yeah, this is all due to the fiat system that we live under, which is why it kind of needs to go. We need to get rid of this because it's just bad. It's bad for society. It's bad for you and me. It's bad for our families. It's bad for our brothers and sisters overseas. It's just, yeah, this whole system the fiat system needs to go. So the last section when it comes to death of this fiat currency is just the death of fiat itself. So a lot of people, again, don't realize that there's been thousands and thousands of fiat currencies throughout the history, and they've all went to zero. For people to think that the dollar is not going to go to zero, that's kind of, I don't know. But again, people are just in their daily lives. They don't look at this stuff. They don't think about it. They don't talk about it, but it will go to zero. So the average life of a currency is about 27 years. Some are a lot quicker than that. Venezuela is having a really hard time. Their money just blows up all the time, and so is Nigeria. But as far as a world reserve currency goes, that's about 100 years. And the British pound lasted about 100 years until we took over in America in 1944. So even America is coming close to that 100-year mark. I think I don't even know if we're going to last 100 years, which would be, I think we became the world reserve currency after Bretton Woods in 1944. And so that would be 2044 would be 100 years. But because we came off the gold standard in 1971, I feel like that just fast forwarded all the money printing, which is going to erode the currency even more. So there's a lot of people out here right now saying that we won't even make it to 2030. And then what's even worse is the US, England, and Japan all came off the gold standard at the same time in 1971. So it's like, we're going to have like a really big, it's not just like, oh, our currency will blow up and somebody else can take it. It's like, we're going to have a really big blow up of, you know, America, Japan, and England all at the same time. And it's going to be really bad. Some people are talking about hyperinflation, which means like your currency isn't worth anything and the price of everything is through the roof, and it gets really bad really quickly. But again, this is what happens when the money that we are trading actual energy and time to go out into the world and produce things and work for things, when that money can just be created out of thin air. Like it's just destined to blow up eventually. And the people in charge of this know this, and there's only two things that they can do. You can either admit your mistakes and let the entire system fail, which they're not going to do, or you just keep printing more and more money to just essentially kick that can down the road. But it will blow up eventually. It's like a drug addict who, you know, maybe, you know, gets a hit of some drugs. Next time they need a bigger dose. And so that's just going to erode it away even faster. It's like, okay, well, to get us out of this situation, we needed to print $5 trillion. And so the next big situation, now they have to print 10 trillion. And then after that, they need to print 20 trillion. And so it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And all that does is just put more and more dollars into the system, which erodes it away faster until it eventually just blows up, which is the route we're probably going down. Which is why our Lord and Savior, Satoshi Nakamoto, came to save us with all this fiat debasement that's going on in this system that's about to collapse. But we're going to get into that in part 2 of this video. Hit a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and I'll catch you guys in that next part where we talk about Bitcoin and how that can save us. Catch you guys later. Peace.